Hi, hello and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here then hi, my name's Zoe, please subscribe. I do all sorts of types of videos, I do true crime, I do makeup videos, I do lifestyle videos and a whole lot more, and I also post on Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays and Sundays, and sometimes I do a bonus video here and there in the week. So yeah, please subscribe and don't forget as well to check out my socials, because whenever I'm doing like true crime videos or Q&As or anything like that, I always go straight to Twitter. I'm so active on there. So all my socials will be linked down below, so don't forget to check them out and go and follow me over there as well. So today we are talking about another true crime video, so I just want to do a little disclaimer. I have been writing them in my description down below, but I kind of wanted to just say something because a lot more people are watching my videos now and I don't want someone to come across this and be offended or be triggered by something that might be in the video. So in this video we are going to be talking about murder. Plain and simple, it's true crime, and I don't want to disrespect anyone who knows this person or was involved, because it's an old case, but it isn't that old, so there may still be people around who know these people, so I don't want anybody to feel disrespected. I'm just doing this for educational purposes. I'm putting it all together so other people can hear about the case as well. So yeah, let's get right into the video. So today we are going to be talking about the case of Kathleen Knight. So Kathleen Murray Knight was born in October in 1955 in New South Wales in Australia. Katherine was born and raised in quite a dysfunctional family. She had 4 older brothers and her mum was married at the time. And her mum, Barbara, ended up having an affair with one of her husband's co-workers called Ken Knight. So the whole scandal around the affair had got out to everybody in the town, and this forced Barbara and Ken to move to Moore, but she did not take any of her 4 sons with her. So Barbara had 4 children with Ken, including twin daughters, and Katherine was one of these twins. So Ken, Katherine's father, was very violent towards Barbara, her mother. He would be violent and he would intimidate her, and he would use that to rape her mother up to 10 times a day. Several times a day he would be violent and he would rape her mother. So Katherine had claimed that she was sexually assaulted by various family members up until the age of 11, but she did say that her father was not one of these people. So in 1973, Katherine first ever met her co-worker David Kellett, and they hit it off and got in a relationship together quite quickly, and Katherine dominated him. If he was to go to the pub and get in a fight, she would fight for him. She wouldn't let him do the fighting. She would do it. She would use her fists and fight, and she was well known around the town and had a reputation for being quite verbally abusive to people and also physically abusive as well. So in 1974, Katherine and David got married. They both turned up to the wedding ceremony very drunk. They was very intoxicated. And when they got there, Barbara, Katherine's mother, had some words of advice for David. So her mother had said, "You better watch this one or she'll effing kill you." And then she said, "Stir her up the wrong way or do something wrong and she will fuck you up." So on their wedding evening, Katherine had tried to strangle David, and later on she claimed that she did this because he had only had sexual intercourse with her 3 times that night before falling asleep. So the marriage was very violent, and one night a heavily pregnant Katherine had burnt all of David's clothes and then hit him over the head with a frying pan. So David fled the family home and he went to a neighbour's and he collapsed at this neighbour's house, and when taken to hospital he was treated for a severely fractured skull. So the police did want to charge Katherine for what she'd done, but she had gone to David and persuaded him to drop all charges. So in 1976, shortly after the birth of their first daughter, Melissa Ann, David decided to leave Katherine for another woman. He'd had enough of the domestic violence, he had enough of being at the hands of her abuse, so he found somebody else and decided to leave. So the next day, Katherine was seen walking up the street with Melissa in a pram, and she was shaking the pram side to side very violently. So she was taken to hospital where she was diagnosed with postnatal depression. She was admitted to hospital to recover and she spent 7 weeks in hospital. Once she was released, she then went on to put her daughter Melissa on some train tracks at a nearby train station. So then, after putting her on the train tracks, she stole an axe, went into the town and started to threaten multiple people saying that she was going to kill them. So a man called Old Ted, or known as Old Ted, was foraging nearby the train station and he came across Melissa on the train tracks, and luckily he managed to grab her and get her off the train tracks within literally a minute of this train driving through the station. He rescued her and saved her life. So Katherine was arrested and she was sent back to the same hospital that she had just spent 7 weeks in. And the next day, Katherine decided she felt better, so she decided to discharge herself. So a few days after leaving the hospital, Katherine had actually slashed a lady across the face. She then forced this lady to drive her to Queensland, and then when they stopped at a petrol station on the way, this lady managed to escape and obviously notify authorities. But unfortunately, by the time the authorities arrived, Katherine had already taken a young boy hostage by holding a knife against him. So the police officers managed to disarm Katherine and she was then arrested. So Katherine was then admitted to Morisset Psychiatric Hospital. So Katherine told nurses at this hospital that she had decided to kill the mechanic at that service station that day, because this was the mechanic what fixed David's car, and obviously David's car enabled him to leave her. So she wanted to kill that mechanic. She was then going to drive to Queensland, and that's where she would then kill David and also his mother. And when police told David about this, he decided to pack up his things and drive all the way back to Aberdeen to support Katherine. Now, I'm not too sure what made him do this. I suppose he was kind of under a spell. He was a domestic violence sufferer, and it's very common for people who suffer with domestic violence to go back because they feel so scared and afraid, and also they think that love is going to conquer all, and it must be a horrible feeling, but I'm assuming that's probably why he did that. Katherine was released on the 9th of August 1976, and she was released into the care of her husband David. They decided to move to the suburbs of Brisbane, and then Katherine got a job in a local meatworks. So in March 1980 they welcomed another daughter called Natasha. So in March 1984, Katherine decided to leave David and move back in with her parents. And then shortly after this, she got her own rented apartment with her daughters. So Katherine moved on from David. She got plenty more boyfriends. She was in and out of work, and she was still very violent towards her boyfriends. Her boyfriends that she did have, she made them suffer at her hands. And when she was with John Chillingworth, who she had a child with, she started an affair with John Price. John Thomas Price was born on the 5th of January 1955. He was the father of 3 children, and he was known as a very happy person. He was well known throughout the town, and a lot of people liked him. There was rarely anybody that could be found that disliked him. So his marriage ended in 1988, and his youngest child went to live with his former wife, and the 2 oldest children were to live with him. So John was fully aware of Katherine's past and her violent outburst and what had happened, but he said his kids liked her and their relationship was really, really good. He described it as being like a bed of roses, apart from a few arguments that they had, which every couple has a few arguments. So in 1988, John had refused to marry Katherine after she asked him, and Katherine got very angry. So she went on and decided to tell John's boss about some items that he had stolen from work. Now, technically, he hadn't stolen these items. He had gone through the rubbish bins and scavenged through the bins to find these items and then take them home. Now, his boss knew, technically, it's not stealing, but they still had to fire him, and unfortunately he got fired from his job after being a loyal employee for over 17 years. So the same day, John decided to kick Katherine out of the home, and the news started to spread fast around town about what had happened. So a few months later, the relationship between John and Katherine kind of rekindled. They started seeing each other a little bit more, but John said, no, Katherine, you're not moving back in with me. Obviously he's thinking of his kids, the arguments and things like that. He just doesn't want that around his kids, so he says no. And even though they're not living together, these violent arguments still happen, and a lot of John's friends had told him, I'm sorry, we don't want to hang around with you if you're going to be involved with this woman. We just can't deal with the violent outbursts and the violent arguments. So fast forwarding on a couple of years, the relationship being the same with the violent outbursts, and Katherine eventually moved back in. In February 2000, after many serious assaults, Katherine had stabbed John in the chest. So he finally had enough of all the violence and abuse that he had suffered at the hands of Katherine, so he again kicked her out. So on the 29th of February of that same year, John tried to get a restraining order against Katherine, obviously to protect himself and his 2 children. And he also shocked his co-workers that same afternoon. He had said to his co-workers, if I don't turn up for work tomorrow, then it was Katherine, she will have murdered me. But obviously being John's friends, they pleaded with him, they offered him places to stay, and they said, do not go back, do not go home, we don't feel safe with you going home, stay with us. And despite all the offers of help and all the wise words from his friends, John still went home. So when he got home, he realised Katherine was not there, but he then saw that Katherine had sent his children on a sleepover to a friend's house. So he made use of this night alone. He just sat on the sofa, watched some TV. He then went to a neighbour's house, and he was around there till 11 o'clock, and then when he got back home around 11, he just went straight to bed and straight to sleep. So Katherine later arrived at John's house, and I'm not sure how she got in, whether she had a key. It's a big chance that she did have a key because they'd previously been living together, but she entered his home whilst he was asleep. She sat and watched TV and then went for a shower. Then after showering, she went and woke John up. They had sex and John fell back asleep. At 6 a.m. that next morning, John's neighbours were concerned because his car was still in the driveway, and usually he would have left for work by now. So they contacted his work, and his work said, look, he's not arrived. So his boss sent a co-worker around just to check on John, and this co-worker and his neighbour was banging on the windows, going around the back, banging on his bedroom window, and they got very concerned and called the police after they seen some blood on the front door. So police came out around 8 a.m. and then they decided to break down John's back door, and this is where they found John's dead body, and they also found Katherine next to him, unconscious from a drug overdose. So Katherine Nat had stabbed John Price whilst he was sleeping. So during the investigation, obviously looking at the blood spatters and all the evidence, police and detectives came up with a theory about what they think happened. They think that John awoke, obviously due to being stabbed. He then went to turn on the light. He then went to run to the door, in which Katherine was chasing him. He then got outside, and he was either dragged back inside by Katherine or he stumbled back inside, and this is where he would die. He bled to death. So an autopsy revealed that John had been stabbed at least 37 times in the front and in the back of his body. So after murdering John, Kathleen went into Aberdeen Town Centre. She went to the ATM and she withdrew $1,000 out of John's bank account. Then, upon returning to John's house, a couple of hours after the murder, Katherine then decided to skin John's lifeless body. She then hung the skin in the doorway between the lounge and the kitchen. So she then decided to decapitate John and also cook some of his body parts. So she served his body parts up with potatoes, veg and gravy. She then set 2 places at the table and put these meals out at the table. She left 2 notes at the side of each plate, and each note had a name on them. The names that were on the notes were the names of John's children. She had planned to feed John's cooked body to his own children. It was speculated that Kathleen had tried to eat the meal herself, but she couldn't, so she'd threw it out onto the back lawn. So John's head was found in a boiling pot of vegetables, and this pot was still warm when the police arrived. So after all this, Kathleen placed John's body with his left arm draped over him, and she also crossed his legs. She also left a bloodstained note on top of John's body, and this note was some allegations. It was allegations against John for raping her own daughter. These allegations were later proved to be false. There was no proof behind them at all. So initially, Katherine had pled guilty to manslaughter, but this was rejected, and she later pled not guilty to the murder of John Price. So her trial was originally set for the 23rd of July 2001, but unfortunately this trial was adjourned, so it was rescheduled for later in the year. So for some reason, when the trial started, Katherine changed her plea to guilty, but then would still stand behind the whole "I'm innocent" act after pleading guilty. So due to this, they did an assessment on Kathleen's mental health. Now, they did find out that she had borderline personality disorder, but the judge did not let this affect the case. They said that she was still fully aware of what she was doing. So her defence was planning on saying that Katherine was confused and was suffering with amnesia, and she had no responsibility in this case at all. So despite all this, she was sentenced to life imprisonment, and the judge ordered that on her papers it was to be wrote that she was never to be released. And Katherine is the first woman in Australian history to be charged with this sentence, life sentence, without any sort of parole. She will die in prison and she will never get out again. So since being charged, Katherine has tried her hardest to appeal and get parole, but obviously this is not being allowed. She committed such a gruesome act. She did such horrible things. She planned to feed this man to his own children, and she doesn't deserve to walk the streets. She deserves to die in prison, and I'm so glad that that's where she'll stay. So that is all for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that bell, because tomorrow I'll be doing a serial killer Sunday, as always. Now, I really hope you enjoyed that case. It's such an important case, talking about domestic violence. You don't normally see domestic violence coming from a man's point of view, so I feel really proud to get that out there and get that case known. So if you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. Like I said, subscribe, check out all my social medias because I'm really active on there, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.